The next piece we're going to look at is the Mardini Effect, and it's dedicated to Arif Mardin. Arif was a legendary record producer and arranger, and he made his career at Atlantic Records and worked with hundreds of artists from Aretha Franklin to Norah Jones. And he was someone I was really blessed with meeting a couple of times and had a huge influence for me in the area of music production. His son Joe and I were pals at Berklee College of Music, and Joe and I we met in the back row of one of our classrooms, and we both discovered we had a similar sense of humor. Basically, in one word, it was sarcasm. And hanging out with Joe, I just heard quite a few stories about how Arif approached working with and recording great artists that he produced. And then also later I got to see Arif in the studio actually, working, and that was really special as well. I'll talk about that a little bit. But one example is just the art of capturing the magic that's within the voice of a particular artist through careful selection of things like microphones, EQ, compression, limiting, all the sort of technical tools that you use when you're recording somebody, all the way through to the arrangement though. So everything had to work with whatever the signature was of that artist. So if it's something like Aretha Franklin, it's her voice, right? Everything has to work around her voice. And Arif's way of finding that perfect sound to work with each artist, whether it's in an arrangement or it's in the mix, is really unique to his artistry. I'm also just so grateful to Joe for his generosity in sharing these stories, and they've really helped me so much with choices that I make as I'm leading recording sessions and producing my own works. The idea of listening for that unique character of a given artist, knowing the ways to capture and focus in on whatever those magical qualities are that artist, and make the track pop without calling attention to yourself as the producer. Those are things that I definitely consider Arif's signature. It's like he didn't really call attention to himself, but all the choices that he made just helped that artist shine, or helped that track just sparkle. And if you want an example of it, just check out Norah Jones's voice on her first album, and you'll know what I'm talking about. The way her voice sounds is just, it's unique, and it sounds different than, like her third album, where there was a different producer, and there's just something that was just always so special about Arif. It's just he just had the secret sauce to be able to find those sort of elements. First time I met Arif, and Quincy Jones for that matter, was the day I graduated from Berklee College of Music, and they were both at the same event, the honorary speakers, which was super cool. To have these two legendary record producers as the honorary speakers. So as I was receiving my diploma, I got to shake hands with the two of them, and they're, these are two heroes for me in music production and just in music in general. And the next time I had met, Arif was in Los Angeles. Joe and Arif were in LA. They were mixing a Bette Midler album, and I was lucky enough where I got to visit with them while they were in the studio, and also play a little ping pong, because they set up for, in the recording room, they set up a ping pong table so that if they were taking a break, they could kind of, play a little ping pong and just sort of like get their heads off of, whatever they were thinking about in the production, which is a nice lesson in itself of like finding ways to relax and stay relaxed in a studio setting, because you're usually just super focused on what you're doing. And they were like tag teaming on the mixing duties, along with Jack Puig, who's the recording engineer who's at the board. He's great, also a great record producer. And it was just an honor to see the level of focus and attention to every detail that they applied in crafting an amazing mix. I want to get now into the actual piece itself, the Mardini Effect. My sense of Arif is that he sort of drew from a well of music that was a global kind of well. It didn't matter whether it was something from his Turkish roots, from jazz, which was a big love of his, from classical music or popular music. He was just somebody who I think was open to having everything available in his toolkit. And he seemed to be free from any sort of restrictions or norms. And I really love that about him, in addition to his pure joy of making music with his friends. So these sort of ideas about Arif drawing from this well that was a global well, those kind of ideas were sort of the springboard for this piece. Not quite sure what I was thinking when it came to featuring an oud with a big band, but that's what I did on this piece. It's possibly that there was an influence from an album that Arif did called Jazapanya, that he did with Vince Mendoza a long time ago. It sort of featured sort of a almost flamenco style jazz acoustic guitar with big band. That might have been an influence. I don't really know. But there was just something about that guitaristic thing with the big band that was cool. And then it could just be that there were certain colors of the sound of an oud and certain modalities that are really evocative. It's really hard to tell. I know I wanted to do something that was kind of modal on this piece, and I wanted to experiment with different kinds of techniques like pandiatonicism for you music nerds, which is, instead of just picking like a 3-note chord, it's like all the notes within the modality are available to you when you're harmonizing things. So it makes things really kind of rich and dense as far as the harmonic language. But it's a particular kind of way of writing, and it's a pretty complex kind of harmonic approach to control. I also wanted to play around with odd time signatures again, and the most important thing, which is kind of also a very Arif thing, I wanted it to be cool and super funky, and I wanted it to groove like crazy. And I'm also, like, on this piece, working with this idea of the individuality of certain players. So my friend Dimitris Jimmy Maklis is this great electric guitarist, but he also plays like the bouzouki and the oud, and there was something about Jimmy's playing that kind of fit perfectly with the vibe I was creating on this piece. So I'm going to have Jimmy do the oud part, and I just can't wait to hear what he does with it.